the race for House Speaker intensifies along with the war in Israel, and the Air Force builds its first electric aircraft recharge station. All of that and more today, October 12th, 2023. Good morning, Early Birds. I'm Jonathan Lehrfeld, and this is the Early Bird Brief, produced by Defense News and Military Times. First up, House Republicans are one small step closer to a new speaker, a necessary move for the chamber to return to business as usual and to be able to pass legislation to support Israel or Ukraine. Republicans nominated Representative Steve Scalise for the role. Scalise is the current majority leader. Lawmakers said House Republicans in private balloting chose him over Judiciary Committee Chairman Representative Jim Jordan. Democrats are set to oppose the Republican nominee when it's brought to the floor for a vote. It's also unclear whether Scalise will get all the needed votes from his own party to become the Speaker. The House has been at a standstill since Kevin McCarthy's historic removal last week, and the leadership battle comes amid a large-scale attack on Israel by the Palestinian militant group Hamas and retaliatory strikes from Israel. Scalise told reporters supporting Israel is top of his list of things to do.
Our first resolution that we pass under Speaker Steve Scalise will be to make it clear that we stand with Israel. The McCall-Meeks resolution will be our first order of business.
The State Department said yesterday that at least 22 U.S. citizens are confirmed to have been killed in the Israel-Hamas war, and at least 17 more Americans are unaccounted for. White House National Security spokesman John Kirby said a handful of American citizens are among the estimated 150 hostages Hamas militants captured during their weekend assault on Israel. Kirby said the administration is in talks with Israel and Egypt to try to arrange safe passage for Gaza's civilians. The war has already claimed at least 2,200 lives on both sides. The U.S. military is sending a second aircraft carrier toward the Mediterranean Sea. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower and its strike group will join the Ford Carrier Strike Group. The Eisenhower's deployment was previously planned. U.S. Navy carriers have been deployed to 6th Fleet since shortly after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, so having two in the region allows the U.S. to continue its naval response to Russian aggression while also remaining near the Gaza Strip. At a news conference, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said the first U.S. munitions have arrived in Israel. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris spoke by phone yesterday with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Another important story: for the first time, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky joined a meeting of more than 50 defense leaders from around the world yesterday to make a personal pitch for military aid. Zelensky told the Ukraine Defense Contact Group that it's unclear how much longer Ukraine can hold out against the Russian invasion.
Next Monday will mark the 600th day of our resistance to Russia's full-scale aggression against our people, against Ukraine. And today, no one can say for sure how many more days we will have to defend our independence and to defend our identity.
His pitch came in the face of lagging political support in the U.S. and new pressure on allies to send weapons to bolster Israel's war with Hamas. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says the U.S. can boost both Israel and Ukraine at the same time. Austin also announced that the U.S. will take on a new leadership role in the broader effort to build Ukraine's Air Force, specifically with F-16 fighter jets. He said the U.S. will co-lead a coalition and will help organize donation of the aircraft, plans to sustain and maintain them, and pilot training. That training has already started in the U.S. Austin said the training will likely take months, and it may not be until next spring that Ukraine is operating the F-16s. This was also Joint Chiefs Chairman General C.Q. Brown's first Ukraine contact group meeting. Also, the Defense Department announced additional security assistance to Ukraine yesterday, valued at up to $200 million. This comes from assistance Congress previously authorized. In other news, construction on the Air Force's first station to recharge electric aircraft will be finished very soon. For more on this, Defense News air warfare reporter Stephen Losey joins the episode today. So I understand the Air Force recently began building its first station to recharge electric aircraft. Can you tell us more about where that's happening and where the service is at in getting that finished?
The Air Force has been experimenting with electric vertical takeoff and landing, or EVTOL, aircraft for the last couple of years. And it's recently taken some great strides towards making that a reality. The Air Force in September 19th actually, they broke ground on the first electric aircraft charging station at Duke Field in Florida. This is the first electric aircraft station at a military installation, I should say. They started building this charging station with Beta Technologies of Burlington, Vermont, which is an electric aerospace firm that's also developing one of the eVTOLs for the Air Force. And that effort's pretty far along. It's on track to be finished October 13th. And once that's done, it's going to pave the way for Beta to deliver its ALIA eVTOL later this month to Duke Field, which is a little north of Eglin Air Force Base.
So why is the Air Force investing in creating and fielding electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft? What will they be used for, and who are the big players in making that happen?
So AFWERX, which is the Air Force's innovation unit, about 3 years ago, they launched a program called Agility Prime, trying to accelerate industry's development of eVTOL technology so the U.S. military can access it if needed. Now, there's a lot of things that make electric aircraft attractive to the Air Force. First off, they're very quiet, much like electric cars are a lot quieter than internal combustion engine vehicles, and they require a lot less maintenance. And the Air Force is trying to figure out ways that they could use these eVTOLs in day-to-day use. On September 21st, another company called Joby Aircraft delivered its first eVTOL to Edwards Air Force Base in California for real-world testing. Edwards is, over the next couple of months, they're going to do a lot of testing to see how well this works for things like transporting cargo, maybe even transporting security forces around the base to do perimeter patrols, maybe transporting maintainers around the base to fix up and check on a lot of the equipment that Edwards has, because they do testing there. There's a lot of very specialized equipment that they need to check on. So there's a lot of potential uses that the Air Force is thinking about for these aircraft. If the Air Force's experiments with eVTOLs are a success and they decide to add some of these aircraft to its everyday fleet, there could even be operational uses in wartime. The Air Force has tossed around the idea of using these very quiet electric aircraft to infiltrate special operations forces behind enemy lines when they need to sneak in very quietly and exfiltrate them. And it could also play a role in combat search and rescue operations. The Air Force is worried about traditional helicopters being too loud and being easily detected by potential adversaries such as China. So what is being considered is possibly using electric aircraft like these eVTOLs to go behind enemy lines and rescue down pilots or personnel who are trapped in enemy territory.
I imagine these aircraft are going to require a lot of power to function. Will bases need to update their electric grids to manage that?
That's right. The kind of charging station that is being built at Duke Field right now requires a lot of juice, enough to power 250 homes. And Duke Field actually had to upgrade its electric grid with a 1,000 kilowatt transformer to provide the high power current that this supercharger will require. And this transformer can raise or lower the voltage and intensity of a current as needed while keeping the electricity flow steady. But what they have in mind is basically a level 3 supercharger, which is kind of similar to what you'd see in a shopping mall garage, that would allow an eVTOL aircraft to be fully recharged in less than an hour. That's the goal, at least.
Thanks, Stephen. For more conversations like this one, please like and rate us wherever you get your podcasts. Also on the radar for today, there's a false claim circulating online that the U.S. military is planning to reinstitute the draft. Defense officials confirmed the armed forces have made no such recommendation to Congress or the president. Those are the entities empowered to authorize a draft. With America's allies in Europe and the Middle East embroiled in conflicts with no end in sight, social media posts are claiming the U.S. military is considering mandating regular citizens to enlist in the armed forces. A number of those are sharing a headline from a September 25th article from a libertarian group in Alabama that reads, "The U.S. military is laying the groundwork to reinstitute the draft." The author of that piece told the Associated Press that his item does not say the military is reinstituting the draft. And the co-author of another piece being widely shared online, said his essay also doesn't recommend resumption of the draft. A spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Defense dismissed claims that the military is planning to bring back mandatory conscription as false. A deputy associate director at the Selective Service System, which maintains information about U.S. residents who potentially qualify for the draft, also confirmed the agency hasn't had any discussions regarding reinstituting conscription. And now, here are some other stories that we're hearing chirps about. An African-American combat medic wounded on D-Day was posthumously honored yesterday in a ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery. Corporal Waverly B. Woodson Jr. tended to dozens of troops after he had been wounded while landing on Omaha Beach. His family and supporters continue to push for him to be awarded the Medal of Honor. The Coast Guard recovered remaining debris from the Titan submersible that imploded on its way to explore the wreck of the Titanic. Officials said they also recovered presumed human remains. All 5 people on board the submersible died when it imploded deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean's surface in June. And the U.S. mission in Niger is in a holding pattern after the State Department designated the removal of the country's democratically elected president as a coup. The head of Army operations in Africa told reporters yesterday that a mission to help move troops and equipment within Niger is done. The command is awaiting policy instructions for what comes next. And on this day in history, in 1945, Private First Class Desmond T. Doss is awarded the Medal of Honor. He's the first conscientious objector to be awarded the decoration. That's it for us this morning. To get more of the top stories and breaking news, go to defensenews.com/EBB to subscribe to the Early Bird Brief newsletter. Please give us a like, rating, and a comment wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to follow us on social media at @defense_news and @Military Times. The Early Bird Brief is hosted by me, Jonathan Lehrfeld, and produced by Zimone Z. Perez. Today's episode features stories by the Associated Press, Diana Stancy, and Stephen Losey. Our editor-in-chief is Mike Bruce. Have a great day.